Hi, my name is Lianne E. This is my interview with an HR resource manager. I interviewed Jamie Turner, who's the Assistant Director, HR Business Partner at Lexington Medical Center here in South Carolina. She spent the last 2 years working there, but has over 20 plus years of health administration experience and has a bachelor's in health administration with a master's in human resources. Before actually starting in with my questioning, I actually posed the involved scenario from Freed and Fotler, pages 36 to 38, to her to see how an actual HR resource manager would go about proposing a solution to this very complicated scenario. And based on what I read her, she stated that any policy should be well written and adhered to. In cases of reasonable accommodation, lean as much toward it as possible until it's no longer reasonable. Anytime there is legal counsel that is needed, to seek the retained legal counsel that you have and try and use third parties to review the claims. That way there are no claims of discrimination or improper handling. Always stick to the facts and do not become over-involved. I next asked her my first question, which is, how does your facility deal with social media? She said, as always, have a policy in place. The better to have a policy to deal with something than to have to create a policy because something occurs. So in that, she did say that policies should be somewhat flexible to allow for individual circumstances. The more stringent a policy, the less applicable it can be to situations as a whole. And in the case of social media, she said that although legally posts about a group posts are protected under the concerted activity clause by the NRLA, posts made by individuals about another individual are grounds for action from the facility, whether it's some kind of compliance training or even possibly termination. I next asked her what resources are available for keeping up on healthcare and employment law. She said to retain an outside legal agency, that there should be a compliance team at any kind of a major facility, and that there are compliancy websites that are available that will allow you to make subscriptions so that when there are updates, they will email them to you. I asked her, how would you deal with the issue of reasonable accommodation and keeping with the scenario in the beginning in mind? And she said to make sure that you accommodate per the Americans with Disabilities Act, that you have a compliance and risk management department to handle the kind of situations where there is need for reasonable accommodation or to assess what kind of accommodation is needed, to comply with OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, to stay up to date with independent commercial accountability organizations like DHC, and to accommodate until it is no longer reasonable. How do you provide excellent care at affordable costs? Each state makes its own regulation rates, and that therefore informs budgets, which are then run and implemented by administrative and accounting teams. In dealing with claims of sexual harassment, Jamie explained to me that, again, a policy must be in place to deal with it, as well as a reporting procedure for the person making the complaint, and that those responsible for researching and substantiating it must determine the severity in order to decide whether disciplinary action is required or termination is needed. When talking about diversity in hiring, she did state that diversity in pre-employment training is essential to making sure that you are aware of cultural competency, or at least to have it, and then that you are making qualified decisions about hiring candidates on nothing other than their skills and qualifications. So that kind of goes with being colorblind, making sure that you also have a well-defined job description and a set list of qualifications and job requirements so that you are hiring the most qualified candidate with the best fit to the organization. And at the end of the day, there are going to be times when you have to decide what level of risk you are going to take. So you could have two equally qualified candidates, but the only difference between them might be their gender or their ethnicity, and it's up to you at the end of the day. You need to be comfortable with making those tough calls. So I learned that policies are key. You need policies for just about everything, and that education to back those policies up and to enforce them is necessary. It's best to be proactive rather than reactive. There are going to be things you cannot plan for in the healthcare industry, and those kinds of situations will require reactive behavior, but that in proactivity allows for planning, which helps keep the drama and the legal problems down to a minimum. When dealing with situations, especially those that are negative with another employer or employee, just deal with the facts and take each situation as it comes on a case-by-case basis and remain professional and engaged yet detached. So thank you for watching my video. I am very grateful that Ms. Turner gave me an hour of her time today, and I hope you learned something. I know I did. Thank you.